there is a massive existential problem facing Britain. I think we're heading towards a very, very risky situation. We know that terrorist sleeper cells have come across the channel. One of them had the profile picture of him stood next to a helicopter carrying 2 AK-47s. Videos of ISIS battlefield footage, beheading videos in what appeared to be northern France with semi-automatic weapons. This is heavy. At what point does charity become insanity? All of these gangs are also operating from in Britain.
I mean, what kind of bullshit is that?
We've created basically an illegal tourism industry.
Tommy Robinson loves his country. Does Keir Starmer love the country, and do Labour?
That is a big job being Prime Minister of the United Kingdom.
I would say you was the centre forward of GB News.
I'm big in the foot fetish community, apparently.
Fuck off.
I am amazed I've never sworn on air because actually I do swear a lot.
I can curb it around children.
I can't. I'm happy to interview anyone. So like I'd interview Kim Jong-un.
Would you interview Bonnie Blue?
I don't like continually hearing from our monarch that diversity is our greatest strength. Iftar at Windsor Castle, packing Ramadan dates for NHS staff.
We need someone that sort of resembles more of a warrior. I am your king. I want to say a quick thank you to our sponsors, Gold Seal. I use their products every single day, and now I finally get to work with them. I use their products for anti-inflammatory, reduced anxiety, better sleep, and mental clarity. I'm going to put a link to their website in the description, along with a 10% discount code for you to take advantage of. Go and have a look at their website, see if there's anything in there for you. I hope you enjoy this week's episode, and good health. Patrick.
All right, mate, how are you?
All the better for seeing you.
Likewise, this is great.
Yeah, this is good. I've been waiting for this moment for quite some time, let me tell you, and I guarantee from this moment, my audience are going to be tuned and they're going to stay tuned. I would say you was the centre forward of GB News.
Oh, thank you.
So, I mean, we could start in so many different places, and I can't wait to pick your brain. But I think, well, it's not even the elephant in the room. I think a good starting point is to talk about illegal migration, the migrant hotel protests that are currently taking place, and they've actually swept the nation, which is such a joy to see, and your recent visit to Calais. You tell me where you'd like to start.
Well, we might as well start with what's going on literally right now, and will probably be going on tonight, and whenever this goes out, probably will be happening every single day between now and then as well, which is the fact that the public have clearly had enough now about these migrant hotels, and that they are taking to the streets and protesting, and doing it actually in a really good way. So you've seen a lot of the women coming forward now, you know, wearing pink, and they're chanting things like save our kids and protect our kids, which is the right way to go about it, I think, because for too long people have allowed themselves, I think, quite easily to fall into this trap of like, oh, everyone's a far-right racist for doing this stuff. And then that silences certain people, doesn't it, from having genuine concern. So I'm really, really pleased to see that that's actually happening now. It's a shame that it's got to this point, but we are, I think, at a huge pivotal moment in Britain, and we're living through it right now, right this minute, which is people saying enough is enough, putting their foot down. We can't go on like this anymore, and we won't go on like this anymore. And I think that's a really important moment for us.
This is history in the making, and I'm so glad that people are waking up to the fact that they are going to be part of history, and I think a lot of people are going to be pleased when they look back that they was on the right side of the history. Let me tell you my experience with my first-hand experience with the migrant hotel protests. So they're all up and down the country. I know I've got a social media following. So when I see these protests popping up, I champion them, but I don't attend them. I may do down the line, but at the moment, I don't want it to be about something that it's not. I want it to be about the community, just normal people without followings, without big voices, just genuine concern. So the politicians look and think, okay, these people aren't standing on the streets for clout and attention. They're scared and they're concerned, and we're responsible for that fear. So I turned up to my local hotel demonstration, the Copthorne, which is near Gatwick Airport in West Sussex, leafy West Sussex. We've got 2 hotels full of hundreds of unvetted migrant men that came here predominantly through illegal channels. So I've turned up there. Now, if ever I've gone to a demonstration, say in the centre of London, I've never had the ability to speak to people that protest against people protesting against illegal migration and crime and like industrial scale rape. So because there wasn't a great police presence at the time, I was able to get straight into the left, shall we say, and ask them a few questions. And just for the record, our audio on the video that I've put out on my social media platforms, the outside noise is blocked because of our audio system, but the cars are beeping their horns, people are interrupting and shouting across. So I sort of look a bit like a shouty bloke, but Also, we don't make change through whispering. But anyway, it was kind of fun and shocking at the same time. Some of the arguments that the left have as to why they accept mass illegal migration, the fact they spoke to one and they seem like a decent person, kind of excuses the other 100,000 that are potentially fleeing their country, not because it's war-torn, because they've committed heinous crimes themselves and this is their safe haven, and we're not checking it out. We're just saying, well, there's your room in a hotel, there's your mobile phone, here's your allowance, we'll do due process now. And people can't even understand the concept that due process once they're here is too late. The due process should take place when they're there. So what's your main bone of contention with people that are protesting against parents that are scared shitless?
Firstly, I just think they're lunatics.
Agreed.
So just imagine that. So there's cases where like a child has been raped or a woman's been sexually assaulted or someone's been killed, and you decide to turn up to a counter-protest at people who are protesting saying that we don't want this in our area. I think that puts you on a very, very squiffy standing point there. I would rather personally be on the side of people who are saying enough is enough, we don't really want any more in this in our area, than people who are there trying to almost ignore the fact that these kind of crimes are taking place. I find that a bit nuts. I also just think they're massive hypocrites. So if you asked any of these people, all right, we've got 100 lads here outside your house, one of them's a rapist and a murderer, okay? So what we could do is we could let them all in, and then you have to find out the hard way which one it is. They'd say, well, no, I don't want to let any in. So why are they content for other people, to have that happening on their doorstep? And we now have stats on this. The Sun actually did quite a good investigation into this based on court records, and they found out that 1 in every 100 illegal migrants in migrant hotels is either wanted for a crime or has committed a crime. So it is about 1 in every 100. And these hotels often have 200 or 300 people in. So that, just taking that to its logical conclusion, would mean that there's probably 2 or 3 criminals in there. Now, some of that might be shoplifting, or I would still argue we shouldn't be doing that stuff, obviously, but some of it might be shoplifting, some of it might be murder and some of the more heinous crimes as well, especially involving children. So how can anyone be against people protesting against that? I just don't understand it. I don't understand the logic of it. I don't understand how someone would want to go out of their way to be standing out there and then saying things like, "Oh, anyone who's against that is a far right Nazi." Well, I'm sorry, but that's bonkers. That is absolutely insane. Another point of contention I've got with a lot of these people is I don't even think they're from the local area, half of this lot. They seem to get bussed in. So you've got this ready supply of people who are these fluffy liberal lefties, or in some cases really hard left people, massive kind of communist socialist people who I think fundamentally want to see the total destruction of Western society. They're just being bussed in from places, and at times being, escorted in by various different police forces, etc., to come and make a stand with their placards and make it give this false impression that there's a 50-50 split of people in that local area. Half of us are in favour of this hotel, half of us are against it. Now, I am telling you now that 90% of people are against this stuff, and you just found this small groups of people that you can dot around the country to make it look as though, it's a 50-50 split. And it's not. So yeah, the whole, I'm basically against the whole thing. I find it nuts.
You and me both. And what's interesting about the police that we've seen chaperoning these leftists in to protest against genuine concern, I spoke to the police as well. I don't think they was, because it's a little small village, Copthorne. They weren't prepared like the Met Police are. Yeah. They weren't keeping you at distance. They didn't have a poker face on. So I managed to get into them and just say, "You guys don't want to be here, do you?"
Yeah.
What makes you say that? I said, well, I get enough direct messages from police officers that are serving and that have served, and they tell me they wish they could do more. They wish they could say more. Their pension relies on it. I know that most of you don't want to be here, and they did not contest that. And when you say about hypocrisy, and this is complete, the irony of this is absurd. There was a counter-protester that was telling me that it's a waste of time protesting because no one listens. It's like, you're doing exactly the same thing. And this is, before we move on to your Calais experience, I just want to say, and I want to make this crystal clear, because a lot of people will watch this, I think, with you and me, because I think this is an interesting dynamic. Because maybe a couple of years ago, someone mainstream would have been reluctant to come on a show with someone like me that isn't mainstream. So I want to say that protesting peacefully and respectfully and sober is the answer. It's all you can do without getting yourself jailed. Please get behind your local communities if you've had enough and you want a better future for your children. No violence, no swearing, no shouting. Be enthusiastic, but be calm and be respectful. But get behind your local communities, but do it the correct way. Southport didn't work. It played into their hands. Don't throw rocks. Don't be violent. Just your presence is enough.
I think that's a really, really vital point. And by the way, sometimes that is easier said than done.
I know.
Because let's just deal with the obvious fact here, which is that the public have already been lied to consistently over the course of the last 20 to 30 years about immigration, legal and illegal. They've consistently voted for legal immigration to be massively reduced and for illegal immigration to stop. And they've been systematically lied to about that. The problem's got worse, not better. In fact, the latest line is, and on the day of recording, on the front page of the Independent newspaper, which is a left-wing newspaper, this morning, it is proof that the number of arrests for people smuggling has gone down under Labour, not up, despite all this smash the gangs rhetoric. So we are living in some kind of Orwellian nightmare here, where you've got a leader and a Home Secretary who go smash the gangs, smash the gangs, smash the gangs, and the evidence shows that they are actually smashing fewer gangs than was doing before. But anyway, so I get that there's this huge sense of public frustration and public anger. And then if you add on top of that, like a murder, a sexual assault, a rape, or something like that, especially something involving kids, we just have to try to be a bit better than some of our basic instincts. Because every single person on the left and so many people in the media are absolutely desperate for people at these protests to let themselves down. They are desperate for someone to turn up 10 cans of Stella Deep, lob a Molotov cocktail into one of these places, and the whole thing erupts, and then they can say that every single person who is at these protests is on the side of that person. Look like what they tried to do with Nigel Farage recently over the Online Safety Act, like where, the Labour attack line was that he was on the side of Jimmy Savile and paedophiles. They're desperate to be able to say people are on the side of, the lowest common denominator, right? So it's really important that people don't do that. And I think from what I've seen pretty much in the last couple of months where it's happening more and more with these community protests, etc. Really, from what I've seen, there's been a lot of women coming out, mothers and grandmothers, etc., coming out and speaking about, look, we fear for our kids. We're also seeing something now which I think is really important, and I do actually think GB News has got a big part to play in this, genuinely, which is that when we are going to these protests now and reporting it and talking to ordinary people who are there, and we're just hearing what they have to say, they are saying things like, well, I used to go for a jog in this park on my own as a woman, and I can't do that anymore because there's 20 men from this migrant hotel who are sitting there smoking drugs, drinking, and being quite threatening towards me. So I can't do that. So you're hearing normal people expressing normal concerns that is very, very hard for anyone to argue with. And I think that's vital. So as long as we kind of keep it to that, then you win the argument. You win the argument. And for that bloke or woman, whoever it was that you spoke to there, who was saying, oh, well, protests don't work. I think in this case they are. Because we're seeing it now, we're seeing it en masse. We're seeing it done, as far as I can tell at the moment, in the right way, where it is community-led people expressing genuine, normal concerns that any other human being would have, and saying enough is enough. And I do think that if you knocks on the door of your average man and woman in this country now, they also share those views. They also think, right, look, we've been generous to a point of being suicidal as a country. It needs to stop. And that's that. So yeah, and again as well. Sorry, just on this, I'm prattling on a bit here, but I think it's important because I was live on air. You remember that night of the far right riots that didn't happen, when it was after Southport, we had obviously some eruption, and then there was a period about a month later where we were told there was going to be this specific evening where the far right were going to take to the streets. So I was live on air. I was covering someone else's show, and at the point that we went on air, we had this list of 3 or 4 locations in the country where supposedly these riots are taking place. And we were like, okay, all right, well, maybe they are. Maybe the police have some intel that there's a big Nazi presence in Carlisle or somewhere. And then over the course of that show, it became 30 locations and it became 100 locations. And I remember sitting there thinking, sorry, hang on a minute. Like, where are all these Nazis? It's literally unbelievable. And then nothing really happened. What we did see was this coordinated thing of a load of people in places like Walthamstow standing up with stand up to racism placards. We saw off the far right. They created this straw man argument to be able to burn it down, to be able to then say, oh, we defeated this huge fascist Nazi threat. And I just think it's important now that we're seeing ordinary, normal people on the streets expressing normal, ordinary views in a peaceful way, but forcefully, but in a peaceful way. And I think that's a really good thing, because I think that will be ultimately the shift when it becomes totally undeniable. And showing up the far left for exactly what they are. There's a lot of very nasty people in those crowds. They're there saying, oh, we're all peace and love. They are flipping not. There's a load of those people who are basically, in my view, actually really quite vicious thugs, some of them.
Yeah, to me, all that Nazi fascists off our streets, that's narcissistic projection. And I see a lot of psychopathy within the left. I mean, it's my job now to examine and try and map human beings out. And the left are dangerous, and people assume that the people on the right wing are the dangerous thugs. For me, I think the people on the left, a lot of them are covert psychopaths.
Yeah, I also don't think it's right wing to not want a migrant hotel like next to your kid's school.
When I'm at this, and then we'll move on, because it's important I say this. So, concerned mothers in their 50s. So after I've come away from the being smothered by the lunacy from the left, I'm then speaking to the people on the other side, on my side, our side. And so this woman, this parent, I won't name her, obviously, but she's got her phone and she's shown me that she's recorded migrants from the hotel in a park recording children.
Right, yeah.
So that gets reported to the police. Where's the action? They're pissing on park benches. They're smoking weed in places where children are supposed to play. So we're all morally obligated to do this the correct way, to put an end to this madness and get back to civilization.
Yes, and that actually, you've identified another key point, which is what's led people, in my view, to feel as though, like, we've had enough of this now, which is, how many times do people feel as though they've seen, like, a crime committed by some of these people, they've reported it to the authorities, they've done it the right way, they've gathered the evidence themselves, they've handed that over to the people that we as a society entrust to do something about that, and they've felt as though nothing has been done. And if you play that out over the course of years, which is where we are now, how do you expect the public to feel about that? If you feel utterly helpless, if you feel as though you've had a political system that has let you down, if you feel as though that you've got a political leader in the shape that we do now, who at times, through his legal profession, although of course he argues that he was just following the cab rank rule and all of this stuff, okay, has been on the side of some people who I don't think have wished us well as a nation. So you're not feeling like you're getting any strong leadership from him. You feel as though you've been lied to about various things. You feel as though you've been the victim to various different cover-ups. And you feel as though the authorities, the police, are not taking action, taking it seriously. And you feel like a lot of the establishment media have tried to cover it up and demonise you, etc. What do you expect the British public to do about that? I think there's been a situation deliberately created that has led us to a point now where people talk about this powder keg situation. It would be a mental illness for the British public not to feel the way we currently feel about it. We'd have to be nuts. We'd have to be like on Valium or something. Like, seriously, how can you not expect the public to feel how they currently feel about it? The situation has been created to almost force us to. It shouldn't be down to people to go out of their way to go and protest outside a migrant hotel, or to go and march on the local council building, or to put their heads above the parapet. You know, there are people now having to make serious decisions. You know, men and women who have just ordinary, normal jobs that might even work in a local school or in a local accountancy firm or a local estate agents, that are having to make a conscious decision that when they finish work one night, they're going to write a placard that says something like "Protect Our Kids," and they're going to put Union Jack on, and they're going to stand outside that migrant hotel, and they're going to run the risk of someone taking a photograph of them, putting it all over social media and it going viral, and then being demonised as some kind of far-right fascist and getting sacked from their job. It should not have to come to that in this country, and it's disgusting that it has.
And the level of gaslighting is so monumental that, and I know that, I'm acutely aware that we're being gaslit, but even still, you do something enough times on repeat, Scientologists call it machine gunning. You do, I mean, we're human beings. Our mind works in, very similar ways, the wirings, and you can sometimes question yourself. Not for too long, but even having chats with someone like you, it's refreshing. It reminds me that nah, I'm not mad. I've not got it wrong. I'm doing the right thing and I'm going to continue. And I think it's very important that we all build each other up and reassure ourselves we're doing the right thing here. Let's move on to Calais.
All right.
So tell me why you went to Calais, what you set out to achieve, what you found, and I'm just going to sit back and take it all in.
All right, sweet. So went twice. First time, it was all about just the numbers coming across on the boats and how easy it was for them to get on the boats and come across the channel and basically, I would say, invade Britain. And we went the first time. I'd never been there before. We didn't really have a plan. We were just like, we're just going to plonk ourselves here and we're going to call it 24 hours in Calais. In reality, it was like 11 hours in Calais because I had to be live on air at 9 p.m. that night. Got there. Turned right off the Eurotunnel or whatever it's called, the Channel Tunnel. I was driving for 10 minutes and just saw a black dinghy in a river system, loaded and ready to go with life jackets and with petrol on it. And there's a river network in that particular part, it's called Gravellands, where you're actually 2 miles inland. But because you're on water, if the migrants piled onto that boat there, it's basically touch and go whether or not the French police feel as though they've got any obligation to stop them, or whether they just wave them down what is essentially a large estuary and then into the channel and then escort them into Britain. So we found that immediately. And then we turned around the corner, so we recorded there, then we turned around the corner and then we saw like just loads of lads from places like Afghanistan who actually, on reflection, were probably about to get on that boat. So if they'd have seen me before, they might have been a bit pissed off. But so we spoke to them and just very easily got out of them. They'd been through like 7 or 8 different countries to get here. They were coming to Britain because they wanted the benefits, because they realised there was less chance of being deported. We were just getting all of this out of them. Found this massive warehouse full of, at the time, just entirely Sudanese men, not a woman or child in sight. Again, spoke to them there. You know, they think that Britain is a land of milk and honey where they're going to get everything they possibly can. So the purpose of that first trip there was just to show the scale of the problem. So how many people are queuing up to get to Britain? The only reason any of those people are in that part of France is to come to Britain. So we wanted to show that. So that was that. And then what happened was we started to get all of this, all this smash the gangs. We're smashing the gangs. And I was thinking, well, that is demonstrably untrue, isn't it? Because channel crossings are up about 50%. So you're not smashing any gangs. And then I started to get a bit of a tip-off from some people to say that these human traffickers are just operating on social media, very easy, openly, brazenly operating on social media. I thought, gosh, it can't really be that easy, can it? And so we had a little look at various TikTok accounts, and like within minutes, we were able to identify loads of human traffickers advertising their services on TikTok. Some of them even put their WhatsApp phone numbers on TikTok, so it's that brazen. It would literally be like a cocaine dealer just having a TikTok page that says, I'm a coke dealer, and then here's my number and my location if you want the gear. And like, you would have thought that maybe the police would do something about that, but it's like that, but for human traffickers. And so we started communicating with them and posing as illegal migrants and saying to them that we were in Calais, just to see how far we could let this run. They were giving us prices, they were giving us locations of where they were going to be and when we needed to be there. They were giving us voice notes. They were giving us every single piece of information that you would possibly need in order to get these people. So we were handing all that over to the British authorities and some of the French authorities, and we didn't feel like we were really getting anywhere with that. And then it went up a level. Then we started to see people who were putting on their TikTok stories and their WhatsApp stories ISIS propaganda, videos of ISIS battlefield footage, beheading videos. They were also posing in what appeared to be northern France with semi-automatic weapons. And we were like, this is heavy stuff, this. And these people were Afghans, Iraqi Kurds, Albanians, Turks. And we were like, this is bad, because we already know that terrorist sleeper cells have come across the channel, and that's before we've even spoken about all the murderers and paedophiles that we've imported. But we know that terrorist sleeper cells have come across the channel, both ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and the Iranian regime as well. And we feel as though we'd identified that this was definitively still happening, or at least the people running this trade were very sympathetic to Islamist extremism. And we reported all of that again to the National Crime Agency, some other authorities here in Britain, and to the French. And again, we felt as though we weren't maybe getting anywhere with that, because we left those accounts for a couple of weeks and we returned to them and they were still operating. So I had a conversation at GB News with some of the bosses there, and I said, look, I think really I'm sick of banging on about this every night. I think I'm going to have to go over there and have a look for this ourselves and try to show the British public how easy it is to get in touch with these human traffickers. Landed in Calais, and within 20 minutes of touching down and getting to the location in Calais, we sent our location to the 8 or 9 human traffickers that I had in my phone book. 3 of them replied like within minutes with locations, all operating from pretty much the same little bit of that coastline there. So we tipped up and we met 3 of them within the space of 2 hours. Bang, 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 straight away. One of them was right in the middle of one of these camps as well. And one of them had the profile picture of him stood next to a helicopter carrying 2 AK-47s. That was his profile picture. So that's that guy. That's the kind of guy he is. We just showed how easy it was to meet these people. I don't remember seeing a single French police officer at any point during that in the camps or anything like that, which I found quite surprising given that we've bunged the French about £500 million. So we didn't see anything like that. And yeah, we were just able to meet these people and show with what complete and utter impunity they are operating with and what kind of people they are. One guy, when we rumbled him, he sent a few foot soldiers over and, we mugged them off a little bit and showed who they were and everything. One of them ran away. He called me, and it's on camera. He called me and threatened to kill me. And that was, these are these people that are there. And the really worrying thing, and this is the thing that doesn't get enough coverage, the really thing that should really worry most people watching and listening to this is that I believe that all of these gangs are also operating from in Britain.
And I fear exactly the same thing. And if that story you've just told us there, if that doesn't concern people massively, I would like to know what does concern them. If that doesn't concern you, what does? That is frightening. Imagine being somebody on the left that's lambasting people for being concerned and vocal. Imagine in 10 years' time, once we've had a mass home invasion, an orchestrated terror attack to put the fear of God into us all, a bit like an October the 7th style attack. How are they going to sit there at the dinner table, if they're still alive to do so, and say, do you know what? I actually fought for these animals that have now taken over. I just wouldn't want to be that person.
This migrant crisis in Europe has been running for years and years and years and years now. And there was no question of the fact that I think initially there was huge numbers of genuine refugees from places that we could see that the wars were happening and all of that stuff. And I think there was a case to say that, okay, we had some kind of moral obligation to take a proportion of those people. Right. Okay. I just don't think that's who these people are anymore coming across. Like, we've created basically an illegal tourism industry. I mean, there's a bloke I've got him on my phone here, who, when I was in that warehouse in Calais that I was mentioning to you there, again, all blokes, he's from Libya, this guy, and he was filming me on his phone, and he put it on TikTok. It's quite handy, really, because then I could go on his TikTok and find out who he was.
Thanks, mate.
Cheers, mate. And he has done a video diary of his entire journey to Europe. He's been to more European countries than I have, this guy. Seriously. He started out coming from Libya, ended up in Gran Canaria. He's been all the way through. He's having a great time in every country he goes to.
He's on a sabbatical.
He's loving it. He's absolutely loving it. And he's going to come to Britain. I would pretty much guarantee he'll be in Britain within a week, and we'll give him asylum because we're mugs. So, again, forget just like the threat and all of this stuff. These people just aren't genuine refugees and asylum seekers anymore. Like, some of them will be, but then I would also question, this is the other thing I was saying to these people when I was out there, like the people who were coming across the channel. Why is it that you're coming to Britain and not making a life for yourself in any of these countries? If these people were all genuine doctors and engineers, Spain would have snapped them up, Germany would have snapped them up, France would have snapped them up.
So would Dubai.
So would Dubai. Quite. Yeah.
Engineers and doctors, thank you very much.
This is it. So again, why is it that these people have been through several different safe destinations and want to come to Britain? There's a couple of factors there. First, we make it very easy for them and we don't seem to be deporting them or anything like that.
We reward them.
But there's also the fact that no other country really wanted them. And at what point does charity become insanity? And we have become insane as a country. And again, it is total gaslighting for us to be like, these are all vulnerable people. People will hold up those odd images that we see of a woman and a child in a dinghy. And I don't like seeing that. I don't like seeing a child that's like, doesn't even look like he's old enough to talk or know what's going on, being pushed out into the English Channel. I mean, I do think their parents have some responsibility to play because they were not that kind of threat in France. So there is a level of personal responsibility there. However, I don't enjoy seeing that. No. And I don't enjoy getting reports come through about people who've drowned in the English Channel and all of this stuff. And you think, right, but you can't ignore you can't let that cloud what we can all see is going on, which is that there is basically an invasion of Britain that is taking place by predominantly young men from very war-torn countries with very backward views about women especially, but also just, there's a propensity to violence in a lot of those countries and extreme violence. There's the massive risk of radical Islamist ideology, and they are coming to Britain en masse, and they are coming here largely because no other country wants them, and they have tried in every other country. So we can't just keep lying to people about what the reality is there.
I mean, you hit the perfect point. They're not refugees. Now, I would be, and I don't say this lightly, you see the people that hold their placards saying refugees are welcome here. Well, here's the thing. I guarantee they wouldn't house a refugee.
Well, they haven't got the room, mate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm in my mum's basement.
Or rent.
Refugees, actual refugees fleeing war-torn countries with women and children, they are welcome here.
Yeah, and this is another thing that the left like to say, oh, you weren't complaining about the Ukrainian women and children, were you? I bet it's because they were white. Well, no. Firstly, they were women and children, for a start.
And they were refugees.
Yeah, and they had every intention of going back home one day. And they do. I think the majority of them do want to go back home one day. A lot of them, we can argue, this is a whole separate topic, the whole Ukraine-Russia situation. I don't really want to get into the ins and outs of that. But some facts is that their husbands were probably conscripted into the Ukrainian military, whether they wanted to be or not, and sent off to fight and die in some meat grinder of a field somewhere in Donetsk or whatever. So we can see that happening. We can physically see all of the missiles, all of the stuff going on over there and everything, and we're like, well, we'll take women and children from Ukraine on a temporary basis. The fact that they also happen to probably share more of a Christian culture is a secondary issue. Yeah, I think that's quite nice. That's a good thing. Probably helps them to assimilate a bit easier and all that stuff. Great, fine. But it was not a racist thing why people were more on board with the Ukrainian refugees. It's like, who would you rather have living in your house, right? A Ukrainian grandmother, her daughter and a child, right? Or like 30 Sudanese lads? Well, I know which one I would choose, just logically. And that's not based on anything about what colour or religion they are.
No.
That's just a logical thing.
Yeah, unfortunately, the left don't use logic. But they're clever enough to twist your words and what you mean. It's like, okay, so you know what I mean better than me.
Yeah.
That's impressive. You're a smart guy. Yeah, insane. Civil unrest, civil war. Inevitable, probable, preventable.
I just firmly subscribe to the view that there is a massive existential problem facing Britain. It's not enough to press pause on the situation. We also have to enact certain policies that undo the mess that's taken place here. So mass deportations. Mass deportations of people who have no right to be here because they're illegal, mass deportations of foreign criminals, etc. So we already have to now act to reverse all of that stuff. That's what we have to do. I think if governments act and do those things, then mass civil unrest and disobedience going forward is preventable. It's like letting radical Islamism set root in Britain was preventable. We didn't have to do that. And we just seem to be like, people in positions of power seem to be almost deliberately creating a situation where it's like the perfect breeding ground.
And the fact we've got so many people in our country that hate our country with a passion and a vengeance, it does make me think the more we stand up and speak about it now and contest and protest, the better. And also remember, like, who your brothers are. We are now one big kind of family. We need to stick together like glue because there's enough people out there that don't like us just for being us, and we don't need to be having silly little squabbles and falling out of each other when really we can kind of merge.
In the last couple of months, the left have really mugged themselves off. They have really mugged
gone too
themselves
far.
off. They've turned up, masked up, shouting things that just don't mean anything anymore, calling like a woman who looks like she's called Deborah, who works at the local cafe, like a Nazi, screaming in her face because she's protested at the fact that, like, basically some child was abused in her community. Right, the left are losing this battle at the moment, okay? Like, let them carry on with that kind of behaviour. Let them carry on. Keep yourselves in check, and then and it is winnable, I think. It's easier said than done.
Totally, but this is such a great conversation because we're all saying that we're not perfect people. We've all got to keep working on ourselves and others.
I'm a nightmare.
But same. But here's a prediction. So there's a new kind of movement. There's a new wave called the Pink Ladies. The women are standing up. The mothers are standing up. People that probably 5-10 years ago would have been on the left, but they're now protesting against all things that they should be. The Pink Ladies, a peaceful female movement objecting to the Islamic takeover, the rape and murder of our children, the increase in violence, the hike in crime. How long before the left brand them the pink Nazis?
Well, it's already happening.
Go.
It's already happening. No, it is. This is it. We've become over-Nazied, right? This is the thing now. So, like, if everyone's a Nazi, then, like, no one's a Nazi pretty much, aren't they? And, we're seeing this all the time now where you've got these people standing there just calling everyone a far-right fascist. I mean, the irony, of course, as you've alluded to, is that they behave like fascists.
Well, yeah.
These people. I mean, really. If you were deaf and you just were shown footage side by side of some of these protests that have been taking place recently, and you were asked to identify in your mind which one were the fascists, you're not pointing at the ladies in pink, are you? The hard left really struggle with any of this stuff because I think they just see like misery and evil everywhere and a brutal oppressive system that needs to be completely shattered from top to bottom. They're on this complete mission. And they think that gender is a social construct. That needs to go as well. They need this complete reevaluation of the way that we think about everything and view everything in the prism through which we look at the world and all of that stuff. They are just a totally humorless bunch that have no sense of self-awareness, whereas I think a lot of people who are on the right are basically just more normal and can have a bit more fun as well. And I think that's an important thing, just to show like the human side of it as well. And again, people can ask themselves, whose side do you want to be on? Do you want to be on the side of the people who are just like, kind of your ordinary man and woman who you might meet down the pub or meet, nod to when you're walking your dog or down the local high street, or do you want to be on the side of those people that would probably over Christmas dinner try to get their own grandma arrested by the thought police for misgendering someone?
Yeah, a robotic couch dweller, a spectator of life that does fuck all but has got an opinion on everything, and it's not a good one. Silence. When I say silence, I mean being silent, being kept silent. I think that leads to massive spikes in crime. If you're too scared to call it out, how's it going to stop?
Well, yeah. I mean, this is it. I mean, we're actually seeing several different things that have happened today. I was listening to the radio on the way up here. The first thing is one of the heads of like the police chiefs uni or something like that, police chiefs board or whatever they are, has come out and said that we should be tackling shoplifters. He said something like, "Well, if you see someone shoplifting, well, why are you tackling them yourself?" And you go, "Okay, all right, yeah, but like technically, whose job's that?" And also, like, what if they've got a needle on them or a machete or something. So are you telling us that maybe we should be doing more to do that? Isn't that the job of the authorities? And then when people do get reported to the police and you provide them with a picture or a video and then they still don't get nicks and you think, well, what's actually happening there? I do find that quite bad. The other thing that happened is that we've just had this big announcement. We were told yesterday, I was told at the GB News studio yesterday, there's a story that's coming tomorrow, which is embargoed, and it's going to be about the police releasing the ethnicity and nationality of suspects. So we thought, all right, cool, maybe they're going to do that then, okay, because they do it to everyone else, don't they? I mean, there were people who were, nicked in the wake of the whole Southport stuff, who at that moment in time were still innocent because they'd not been going to trial or anything like that, who were arrested, had their faces put out there, had their home addresses put out there, and were basically all branded as far-right racists, which could have had very serious consequences. Again, I will stress that those people at that moment in time had not actually been to court yet. So everyone's innocent until they've been proven guilty. So they didn't. The police have never seemed to have a problem with the description of someone as long as they've been white. So we thought, okay, well, it's changing now. Good, because then that removes a level of secrecy, like what you said. That idea of there being a cover-up, that idea of, we're trying to be silenced, the truth is trying to be hidden from us about who this alleged perpetrator is. Anyway, it's turned out that it's not really that at all. They said that I want to make sure I get this right, because I showed this to you before. Here we go. Right, I'll read this to you now. Police told that they can reveal suspects' ethnicity in high-profile cases. What's a high-profile case? Isn't a high-profile case kind of whatever we decide it is? So, like, that to me, from my perspective, if I get wind of someone where someone goes, right, someone from a migrant hotel has, in my local area, they've done something to like a kid in a park or something like that. Well, I think that's a really high-profile case, especially given the climate that we're operating in the conversation that we've just had now. So if I went to the police and I was the only one who had that story, no one else did, and I said, okay, we've got this. Can you confirm that that's happened? And can you tell me, please, the ethnicity and nationality of the suspect you've arrested? They could decide, well, you're the only one who's got this story now, so that's not a high-profile case. So I'd have to go on air, presumably, and tell people that this had happened, and then other outlets might pick it up, then you might start talking about it, and some other people might start talking about it, and then it becomes a high-profile case, and then they might release their ethnicity. So we're in exactly the same situation we are now, where we're sitting here going, why didn't you just tell us at the start? Nothing has changed. As far as I can tell, nothing has really changed. And again, it's gaslighting. The Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, welcomed the guidance as a step forward, adding that the government and public want greater transparency. Well, we want greater transparency. I'm not convinced this government does, because this is piss poor. And the government hasn't exactly behaved as though it wanted massive transparency when it came to things like the Pakistani rape scandal, did it? Or the Southport incident to begin with. It's just insane.
That to me just screams that nothing's changed, and we saw the problems that evolved from the lies and secrecy after the Southport massacre, Starmer gaslighting the nation, and we saw what the consequences were, which were very detrimental to the entire nation's reputation. And it seems like it's exactly the same bullshit, but just packaged completely differently now. It's like, okay, you're just thinking of different ways to trick the public.
Just put lipstick on a pig, haven't they?
Yeah.
That's it. They just put lipstick on a pig and said, oh, there you go, we've done something. Because that buys them a bit of time. And this is one of the things that really, really pisses me off. And it's not just Labour that did it, by the way. I mean, the Tories had 14 years at this and completely screwed it. I mean, the clue's in the name of the Conservatives, isn't it? And they didn't conserve anything. They didn't bother to conserve anything. But all it is now, I think, is about an exercise in trying to buy time. So they will be able to say things like oh, well, we're looking at having an inquiry into the Pakistani rape scandal. And then, like, if we get that, whatever form that eventually takes, well, then that'll probably take a couple of years to do, maybe. So then they can, in that whole period of time, they can say, well, we've got to wait for the results of this. We've got to wait. We've got to let them do their work. It's like this, isn't it, now? Or we've introduced new legislation on the ethnicity in high-profile cases. Okay, so we'll have to wait for something to happen and then wait and see if they release anything. And then if they do, then right. If they don't, then... And again, it's just buying time. This deal with the French. Again, gaslighting 101. One in, one out deal with the French. It's not a one in, one out deal, is it?
Do you know what? I'm glad you mentioned that. My son, we was in Miller and Carter the other day having a bit of steak.
I love Miller and Carter.
I do. Much better than Hawksmoor.
You know, they shut down the Miller and Carter in Wilmslow, where I'm from, and I nearly went to lay a wreath outside. Honestly. Anyway, carry on. Sorry.
You're in mourning.
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Grieving the loss of Miller and Carter.
Yeah.
Well, my son said to me, what is this one in, one out thing that they're talking about? So can you answer my son's question?
Yeah.
What is the one in, one out policy?
It's a lie. That's what it is. It's not one in, one out at all. We've had 2,000 illegal migrants cross the channel since this policy came into action. We have not sent a single person back to France yet. The deal, as I understand it, if you call it a deal, it's a surrender really, is that the boats keep coming, great. And then of the 2,000 people that have come in like the last few days, let's say maybe we send 50 back to France. We then get 50 others in return. And this is a very grey area, this.
And is it a migrant for migrant replacement?
Yeah, they're not like 50 French millionaires. And it's a very grey area about what security checks the French have done on these people and what they have to tell us.
I mean, what kind of bullshit is that?
It looked to me like the French didn't really have to tell us if these people, who these people were necessarily, or kind of what the security background was to them, if they even knew. Then the government kind of came out and said, oh, no, yeah, they will be thoroughly security checked. But then there's been some other comments about the idea that they might not be. It's all of, again, it's complete go. So what it means in practice in terms of numbers, which is what I think most people actually care about, like your son probably just cares about the numbers, right? What does this mean in terms of numbers? Well, it basically means that as long as the boats keep coming, we're going to receive exactly the same number of migrants that we're getting if we hadn't have done this deal, because we're going to accept everyone that we can't send back to France. Of the 50 that we are going to send back to France, we're going to get 50 in return anyway. So it won't make a blind bit of difference, really.
Wow. There's been an explosion, I would say, in audience that tune into GB News. We now know it's the most popular news channel out there. And I think you play a very big part in that. There's been people that have accused GB News of appealing to gammons and racists. Now, before I ask the question, I would like to know in the comments now people have sort of watched this chat for 45, 50 minutes. Do we either of us appear to be like racist, bigoted gammons that are unreasonable.
You might regret asking that. People will clip it up and say,
let them do it. But or do you think there's genuine cause for concern? But you will know better than anybody. Predominantly, who tunes in to GB News? What's your audience? Who's your audience?
Mate, it's fantastic, this. And this is why now, whenever you get like your James O'Briens or you see these people on Question Time, and they like dig up a Guardian journalist from somewhere and they'll just toss this stuff out there where it's like, they obviously live in this world where they think that the GB News viewer is like a 60 or 70-year-old man or woman who's very, very red in the face, who wakes up every morning and sings Rule Britannia and harks back to the days of the Empire. They just have this view of these people. And I just laugh at this now. So several things are happening. So the first thing, and I think it's a really important thing, is that our viewer base is getting a lot younger. Now, social media has a huge part to play in that because, I'll go on and do my show. They'll clip it up. Our team will clip things up, and it's on TikTok and it's everywhere, right? So that gets a lot of people who are younger seeing it. I'm getting stopped now by men and women, boys and girls, actually, really aged anything from like say 15 to 30, just in the street saying, "We watch this, we watch that." So it's not just the age demographic that's shifting, but also just the ethnic dynamics of it as well. And this is something that I find, really, really, really interesting. And again, I would love it if people like, people on the left just follow me around for a day or something like that. I mean, I'd hate it because I'd be being followed by James O'Brien, but like, follow me around for a day and just
no one wants that.
No, but like, for example, near where I live, there's quite a big Iranian community. And by that, I mean people that fled Iran when the mullahs all came in. And they're all like fully signed up members of GB News. Loads of them are incredibly pro-Trump, right? And they're saying to me like, why are you letting these lunatics into your country? You're letting the people that we fled from into Britain.
We're going to have Iranians leaving Britain soon.
Yeah, well, this is it. Yeah, but you just have loads of people as well. I mean, there's a lot of the Caribbeans and Africans as well, who's big Christian culture there, of course. So they actually kind of came on board, as far as I could tell. Some of them, anyway. This is just from what they said to me, because some of them were really quite anti this radical trans agenda. That really offended them. They were very, very, very anti that. And they thought, well, GB News is kind of the only place where we're speaking about that. So I get stopped by people all the time who are either African or Caribbean, etc. Obviously, the Jewish community is broadly speaking, I don't want to say not a monoculture, obviously, but the Jewish community, a lot of them are quite in favour of GB News, given that we've been standing up against all this kind of, I would argue, at times just really openly pro-Hamas stuff that seems to be taking place on Britain streets as well. I mean, again, as well, you've got people that stop. There's a guy who lives near, I won't name him as well, but an Indian family. If I'm walking around, we'll end up, I lose half an hour of my day every single day talking to this geezer. And it's brilliant because, again, he's got direct experience of some of the skirmishes that his family have had with some of the people in parts of Pakistan that he thinks is really, really backward in medieval, parts of Mirpur, which happens to be a large part where we've imported a lot of people who've been responsible for the grooming gangs issue. So these are people from like literally all over the world, of all different ethnic backgrounds, of all different religions. They're all tuning into GB News. And the idea that we've got this tiny little window of people now who are all, kind of like I said, these kind of like 60 or 70-year-old, gammons that live in a static home in Skegness. That when someone tells me, or I see it on telly or radio, and people are derogatory about GB News viewers, I just think, I stop listening to you because you just need to get out more. Like I'm like, oh, you're an idiot.
Yeah, people boots on the deck. I mean, even me, little old me, I get a great reception whenever I go out. I really do. I don't. Even people that disagree with me, they come up and have a little chat, and then after 10 minutes, they say, "I'm really glad I had a chat with you." I had it literally 2 days ago in my local gym. She's married to a Muslim man. She come up to me and said, "Oh, Liam, you probably won't like me." I said, "No, I probably will. I like most people." She said, "Well, I've seen what you talk about on your show, and I've got a Muslim family."
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, that's fine." I said, I would never have known that. I said, "But has your husband come here to spread the caliphate? Is he an Islamist? Does he want the eradication of the West? Does he want Sharia law implemented?" She went, "Oh no, goodness me." I said, "And he's contributed towards the economy for many, many years?" She said, "Yes." I said, "Oh great. Well, he's probably against the same people I am."
I went to Birmingham to cover the bin strike there, and obviously it's huge Muslim population in Birmingham, massive. I mean, there's some wards there that I think are like 80% Muslim. And I was walking around just like, vox popping people in the street about the bin collection and stuff like that. And just by definition, like the majority of people that were around were Muslim. And I actually didn't get one bit of trouble at all. And in fact, the opposite happened, where there were cars that were driving past with like young lads. It was quite funny, actually. You know, like, kind of like souped up Renault Clio type stuff. And they'd pull up and they were like, "Is it you from GB News?" And they were like, "Oh, you're right. Yeah. Drive off." And you know what it is? It's because they actually don't like grooming gangs either, right? So they didn't think it was racist for people like you and me to call out the fact that that has been a big issue amongst aspects of the British Pakistani community or just Pakistani community in Britain. They didn't think that was racist because that's not them. They're not that. So they can see straight through that. It's like white liberals who think, "Oh my gosh, you're tarnishing all of the Pakistani community with the same brush." Well, a lot of the Pakistani community don't feel that way. Have you tried asking them? Because maybe you'd get a shock.
I'd imagine a lot of them are secret GB News subscribers as well.
Possibly.
Well, I've heard people on the right have accused GB News of being woke for not ever inviting Tommy Robinson on. And I've spoke to lots of people from GB News, and I'm never ever going to name them because that's what's said privately remains private. But can you see that changing? Can you see a bit of a shift down the line because he's been proven to be right? Sort of more times than not, Tommy, isn't he?
Tom Robinson's been 100% right about the grooming gangs issue, and he was ahead of his time on that. And I think he deserves a huge amount of credit for it, a huge amount of credit. And we could talk about this in a little bit more detail, by the way, a bit later on, just about, I think, the way that he was treated about that. And I would like to go on record about that, actually. Just in terms of the GB News side of it, so for me personally as a journalist, I'm happy to interview anyone. So like I'd interview Kim Jong-un. I'd happily interview like the guy whoever's the head of whatever ISIS is now or something like that. I'm also not saying Tom Robinson's like those people. I'm just making a point.
Would you interview Bonnie Blue?
No, I won't go that far. Never go that far. Never go full Bonnie Blue. No, I don't. But so from my personal perspective, I am happy to interview absolutely anybody. One thing that I will say is that I think that we have incredibly outdated and ridiculous and ludicrous contempt of court laws in this country. And if you look back at the situation that Tommy Robinson has found himself in largely over the course of, say, the last, roughly speaking, 3 years, where he's either been entirely involved in some kind of legal action or in prison. And the case that I would use to back this up is what happened to him when he was about to be released this time. They slapped another couple of charges on him. Like, I think, was it a week before he was released or something?
3 days.
3 days before he was released.
Went into prison and said, "Here's some new charges."
Right, there you go. So they slap a load of charges on him. And why do you think they did that? Well, because he was about to come out of prison, and I think there was definitely a story to tell there. And I think there was definitely a news story. People can agree or disagree with him on anything. Some people might think it was entirely his own fault he was in there. Some people think, of course, he's been persecuted by the state. Right. But there was definitely a news story to be told there, and he'd served his prison sentence, and everything was kind of sewn up, really. And there was an opportunity there, I think, for more mainstream outlets to then start interviewing him. But then that gets kiboshed by the fact that you slap a load of charges, it becomes embroiled in another active case, and that becomes very, very difficult due to our contempt of court laws and Ofcom as well, in order to be able to kind of have the kind of discussion. If you were going to interview Tommy Robinson on television, you'd want to talk about everything. Whatever direction you want to go in. And because of those charges, you were just basically unable to do that. And then, and I think that is a bit of a deliberate thing.
And is that Ofcom putting the choke on it?
Well, it's the law, really. It's the law. I mean, there's contempt of court.
But you could get him on and sort of skirt. You could get Tommy on and skirt around a few things.
You could really, but I think it would be difficult. And again, I would just say as well, like, if you're going to do it, it's about a bloke who's basically been on mainstream media or whatever you want to call it, establishment media hiatus for the last however many years because they don't want to touch you. If you were going to do it, I think you'd want to do it kind of warts and all, really. That would certainly be my view on it. So is it not better to try to wait for a time when you can do that and then do it? Just in terms of the idea about will it ever happen? Well, I don't know if it'll ever happen.
Would you like it to happen?
I would like to interview Tommy Robinson. And I want to caveat that with several things, which is that the reasons I would like to interview him is because everyone seems to be talking about this guy all the time. So it seems a little bit ludicrous to not interview someone who is forming such a big part of public discussion and all of this. Like I said, and again, I want to emphasise this, I really do genuinely think that because, unfortunately, the laws are the way they are in this country at the moment, and the contempt of court issues and what he's literally going through right now, as we speak right now, it is very difficult / a little bit pointless to do that on national television. Some people might disagree with that, whatever, fine. That's my view on it. Whenever the name Tommy Robinson is mentioned, it invokes a strong reaction from both sides. And he's an incredibly divisive figure. What I will say about him is that I know from first-hand experience, like when I was younger and just like not particularly like politically aware, maybe I was just kind of in journalism, just starting out and all of this stuff. I remember it being very much of the view that just by definition, Tommy Robinson is a bad person who's in some way evil. And if you ever say anything that could be perceived as being positive about this guy, then that was like career ending for you. You should never, ever say that.
Well, see, I know him personally, obviously, very, very well, and his family. And I tell you something about him that, I mean, there's lots I admire about him, but I admire all of my friends. For me, I'm a fan of all of my friends. I think if I'm not a fan of a friend, then they've got no reason to be my friend. So I'm very supportive and I admire all of them for all their different strengths. And there's one thing about Tommy that I particularly admire. So he knows that he's been branded toxic Tommy. He knows that. He knows it's bad for people's careers. So even when people have said negative things about him in the past, when me and him are sitting in the cafe having a coffee before we go and exercise, we talk about people. That's what people do. And he's got nothing but forgiveness and love for people, even people that have spoke ill of him. He's sort of like, I get it. He said, of course, the media have painted me to be somebody I'm not. Of course they're going to believe that. And he just doesn't hold any animosity whatsoever. And I know for a fact that if he met them face to face, A, I know that they'd really warm to him. And B, I know that no matter how bad they took it, he wouldn't hold it against them because he knows that they've been indoctrinated. They've been force-fed lies purposely to not particularly like him because he's a threat to the establishment, because he's not afraid of challenging power, and they don't like that. But one thing we do know is, which will lead me to my next question, because I think people do like a bit of Starmer slamming on this channel, Tommy Robinson loves his country. Does Keir Starmer love the country, and do Labour?
Well, I don't think that Keir Starmer loves Britain. I don't think that Labour love Britain. And I think that Keir Starmer's track record as a lawyer, which is something that people get very upset about if you dare to raise this, because he will say and does say that it's the cab rank rule. So his work as a human rights lawyer and all of this stuff, he provided a service for essentially like whoever would ask him to. Unfortunately for Sir Keir Starmer, that did at times involve some just devastating wrong-uns. Like Hizb ut-Tahrir, which is now a banned terrorist organisation in Britain, they were fighting their ban in Germany, I think it was.
Are they recently banned?
They were recently banned.
Yes,
here in
only
Britain
recently.
because they called for jihad on the streets of Britain just after October the 7th. They had big orange banners calling for jihad. So, yeah. Anyway, and he'd represented them in their case, I believe it was, to try to stop them being banned in Germany. Now, and this is just one of like a catalogue of I would think some pretty dodgy clients that he's associated with. Now, okay, I could understand it if he was trying to get some kind of political prisoner release from a Myanmar prison hellhole and all this stuff. But like, did he have to take that case? Now, he might argue he did have to take that case. I just find that a little bit ropey. I mean, the Attorney General, who is his great mate, a guy called Lord Hermer, has also had a back catalogue of some unbelievably fruity characters, including one bloke who was accused of being one of the masterminds of the 9/11 terrorist attack, who Lord Hermer represented. Now, I don't know about you, mate, right? But like, if in my line of work, I kept getting knocks on the door from like people who were, loosely affiliated to Islamist terror groups, I might question whether or not I was in the right job. Or I might start asking, what is my reputation on the old Islamist terror scene here? That didn't really seem to stop them. There's also been things that have come in about removing the immunity for historic prosecutions from British veterans. So we have a situation now where people who basically let off bombs as part of the IRA can walk free with letters of immunity and they cannot be prosecuted ever. But British soldiers who fought in the Troubles, who probably just done nothing wrong, are now able to get knocks on the door by the police and be like, can you remember where you were in 19 whatever it was on April the 13th on a Wednesday? You're accused of shooting an unarmed man in the back. and they can be tried for murder for all of that. Well, I think it was this Labour government that removed their immunity on that. I find that incredibly dodgy. You look at the Chagos deal as well. That is nuts. That is insane. Who was the lawyer that was operating for Mauritius on that? It was one of Keir Starmer's friends, a bloke called Philippe Sands, KC, who, again, I think seems to be on speed dial for people who want to take this country to court and secure huge sums of money or weaken us strategically and militarily on the international stage. So why is Sir Keir Starmer friends with these people initially? Why has he appointed one of them to be our Attorney General? I think that's incredibly dangerous. I also think you have to have a look at the fact that he's opened the doors, despite the fact they say they won't, open the doors for things like reparations, for like slavery, etc., climate reparations as well. You add all of these things in now. Yeah, I mean, this is the bloke that said he would rather be at Davos than Westminster. And that tells you a huge amount about the psychology of this kind of guy. He might sit here and say he is on the side of Britain. To that, I would say, I don't think you know what Britain is. And I think Sir Keir Starmer is finding out a very, very stiff lesson here, because for pretty much all of his life, he has been told how great he is. He's been told how intelligent he is. He's been told what a shrewd legal mind he is. So people blowing smoke up his arse 24/7. Oh, he was a bit dishy. I mean, there was even that woman who wrote Bridget Jones who said she'd based Mr. Darcy off Keir Starmer.
Please.
Which mate, seriously, like, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and
Fuck off. Fuck off.
Right.
No.
So you've got this thing
that was
about
a bridge too far.
You've got a bridge, yeah. So you've got like all of this stuff. This is his life story about it. And then what's happened is he's basically won a general election by default because the Tories were unelectable. Reform were not in a position to win a general election at that point. I don't know what kind of cretin votes for Liberal Democrats, and the Greens are just fruity. So that was it. So he's won this loveless landslide. And now, unfortunately for him, that means that he has to come into contact with the British public. And he is recognising now that his views and his mindset and his set of kind of like North London human rights lawyers are a fraction of a percentage of the British population, and that their views do not resonate with people like you and I dare say the vast majority of people watching and listening to this. In fact, their views are totally alien to it. So by what my definition of loving Britain would be, Keir Starmer does not match that definition for me.
He's actually the polar opposite. I mean, he's just, he's certainly on the spectrum somewhere, but again, I think a lot of us are, but I think he's a sociopath. I try to work out, is he a psycho or is he a sociopath? Probably more a sociopath. His lack of empathy and just his sort of dead behind the eyes. I mean, it'd be interesting to see him and Bonnie Blue have a stare out. But Starmer aside, I'm not a big fan of him. I prefer Bonnie Blue to him.
Well, really? Well, gosh. Yeah.
There you go. Let me ask my audience. And I know that people don't like Bonnie Blue because I get absolutely dragged over the coals just for having her on the show, but I want to know what the fuck she's playing at. But who do my audience?
I just love the way you talk on this stuff. I was imagining that this was my show. Okay, we're live on GB News at 9 p.m. or whatever, and I've got someone on who's just called Keir Starmer a sociopath or a psychopath, and I can hear it in my ear now going, all right, you just need to say the words. Keir Starmer is probably not a sociopath or a psychopath. We might have to just go for a right reply to number 10 on this about whether he's a sociopath or a psychopath. Just deny it, and then we can all move on. And then you just don't have to do any of that stuff, do you?
I can't be bought, and I'll never sell my soul. But I do want to know who do my audience hate the most, Keir Starmer or Bonnie Blue?
You know what? That's a cracking head-to-head on my show. Like, I'd love to do that.
That's got to be the thumbnail for this interview. Keir Starmer, Bonnie Blue, who do you hate the most?
Well, there you go. You put my face in that, and I reckon it will be 10 minutes after this podcast goes out that I get number 10 on the phone going, right, we're not doing any interviews with you. Although, to be fair, that wouldn't make a change.
Can I just say that anything that I say, believe, or do holds no bearing towards whatever Patrick says or does or believes. There you go. I've got you out of trouble.
That's all right, I'll probably do. Yes, yeah. I mean, you do raise an interesting point there. So whether or not he's sociopath or a psychopath or whatever, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. However, what I will say is, you can tell when you're looking at a man who doesn't know what the next word out of his mouth is going to be. And why is that? Why is it that you speak very freely and easily and we can have a conversation like this? It's because you have conviction in your beliefs and you're prepared to say them. We all know what it looks like when a bloke has not got that. And Keir Starmer is standing there and you can tell that every single thing that's coming out of his mouth is going through a little thought process. But Right, am I saying the right thing? Does this sound all right? Who's this appealing to? Will this annoy people on the left? Will it annoy people on the right? What's the best thing for me to say? And then eventually we just get some form of guff out, some other gangs comes out of his mouth like that. We're not looking at a man there, I don't think, who has a clear political ideology. And that's one of the things that really winds me up, because that is a big job being Prime Minister of the United Kingdom.
Cool.
It's not like you're in charge of Liechtenstein or something.
And fancy doing that job as badly as he is.
But it's a big job and it comes with great responsibility. And he's wandered into it at a moment of existential crisis for Britain. And if you are not up for that job, you should do the polite thing and get out of the way. So make way for someone else who, even if they might get certain things wrong, or they might make a Horlicks of it, or whatever, at least feels as though they're in a position to have a conviction and an ideology. We need someone in Britain at the moment, unequivocally, who has got a steadfast ideology that you can paint to the nation and go, right, these are my beliefs on this, and this, and I'm going to try and bring the nation with me on it. So half of you might already agree with me, the other half might need some convincing. But this is what I think, and this is how I think we get out the shit, okay? Because we're in the shit at the minute. This is how I think we get out the shit, and this is my clear vision for that. These are my principles that I will not move from. Everyone can unite behind that. It's one of the big criticisms of Jeremy Corbyn, of course, is that the guy's a complete Fruit Loop, all right? And I do think that. But he's got an ideology like that you can agree or disagree with. Keir Starmer, I just don't think has anything. And we are at a very specific moment in British history now where we need to be led. And I think we're a lion of a country being led by a complete and utter pussycat.
Yeah, we have lost leadership so bad. And consequently, that filters down and it leads to a lot of lost individuals and they're trying to grip hold of something. And I think that's where Islam comes in and says, well, we're strong. Stick with us. But before I'm sure we'll touch base on Islam, but what's your 30,000-foot view on reform? How do you perceive reform? You know, the fragmentation, the fallouts, the controversy, are they the answer? What's your view on them?
Well, at the moment, I don't really see who else the answer is. I'm not saying that as I have no desire to get into politics or anything like that. I really love doing what I'm doing at the moment. And obviously there's a crossover there because we talk about political issues and I give my views on them. So there's that. Just look at what the opposition is. So Labour, like, it's not that, is it? That's not that. I don't think the Conservatives, and I speak to a lot of Conservative shadow ministers and all of that stuff, and I think that they are pretty realistic about it. They're not in a position at the moment. They're going through that. They're recovering, aren't they? Or trying to recover from wherever they are. I mean, the Lib Dems, if the Lib Dems are the answer, I don't know what the question is. So there's that. And realistically, then you've got the other kind of groups, haven't you, like the Greens or whatever, Jeremy Corbyn's, the Fruit and Nut Party, or Jezbollah or whatever it's going to be called, that Jeremy Corbyn party. So I look at it now and I'm like, okay, well, realistically, of the three main parties that there are at the moment, which is Labour, Tories and Reform, who's more likely to win the general election at the moment? All the opinion polls point towards Reform. And I mean, maybe it's just time for someone else to have a go. One thing that annoys me a little bit, and I don't know how you feel about this and how your viewers and listeners feel about it, but I just worry that there's a chance that, like, the fed up right or centre right, or however you want to describe it, whatever that means these days, or where you are, right or centre or whatever. But the fed up, like, majority of people in Britain, that we might end up snatching defeat out the jaws of victory by, like, fragmenting massively, falling out with each other, getting bogged down in, like, quite petty squabbles.
In the minutiae.
And then in the process, just looking completely unelectable and chaotic and almost like creating scandals for the left to pick at, like self-harm, really. If people do subscribe to the same view that I do, which is that there is, I think, one more chance to save Britain, which is going to be at the next election, are they willing to put some differences aside and just do what it takes to get something over the line? Because I think if we have another 4 or 5 years of the current trajectory of the Labour government, I don't think everyone in Labour, by the way, is as bad as Keir Starmer, and I think that would be really, really, really unfair on some people that I know in Labour to say that, because it's just not true. But I think if we had another 4 or 5 years of a Keir Starmer government on top of this, like, I don't know if we come back from that as a country.
No, so we've got Keir Starmer as PM, and we've got King Charles as our king. I don't even like saying that now. Do you think King Charles is infected with the woke mind virus?
It's a really difficult one, this, because I am a massive monarchist. I am. And I know that might divide people. I don't know. I just am. I mean, like all of us, didn't we? We were whole lives with the Queen. And I just think, I could actually cry now. It's ridiculous. This is how pathetic it is.
Well, the Queen was great.
That was a wild day in the GB News office, that.
When the Queen died.
Yeah. I walked in and I was doing a show 3 till 6 p.m. at the time. And I got in about midday and I had my hand on the door of the GB News green room studio. My phone went off and it was an MP I won't name. And he said, the Queen's dead. I was like, what? And then I went in at the office and it had just started going around and everyone was like, what do we do? What do we do? And then we were told initially they were going to announce it at 3. And I was like, shit, I'm going to have to announce the Queen's death.
Wow.
Yeah. I didn't even have a black suit. I sent someone to M&S down the road to go and get me a black suit and a black tie and all of that. And luckily, in the end, we got Alistair Stewart in, and that was the right call because that guy, he's gravitas central, that guy, was much better than me. I don't know what I would have done. I don't know what I would have done if I could have done it, actually. So that was nice. Anyway, sorry, to get back to King Charles. So we've had that, right? That's all I've known, that wonderful woman that was there. I've cut King Charles quite a bit of slack because I think he's getting terrible advice. I think that some of the people around him are completely detached from the reality and the mood on the ground in Britain. I think they've made some really bad calls. I don't think they should have done things like have that iftar at Windsor Castle. I don't think that he should have made a big song and dance about like packing Ramadan dates for NHS staff. I don't think he should have, done he seems to reference Islam a huge amount, more than I think he references Christianity.
It makes me wonder why he's doing that.
I hope he hasn't gone down the route that I think sometimes quite a lot of high-status posh people do, which is that they start to believe that maybe they are slightly more intellectual than they actually are, and that they have this kind of very big, globalist, lofty worldview about things and, all of that stuff. And whereas actually, if we are in Britain at the moment being led terribly by the elected government, we look for leadership in other ways. And there are ways of the king doing that I think, could really help to unite the nation. And I don't like continually hearing from our monarch that diversity is our greatest strength. I don't know when the last time he drove down the Edgware Road was. But I'm not convinced that's a strength. And I just worry about him because there's a bigger picture for me here. Monarchs come and go. That's a horrible thing to say, but that's the definition of it, isn't it? They come and go. I think I've got really quite high hopes for William and Catherine. I don't know if people share that view. I do have quite high hopes for that. I just feel like we're at such a chaotic moment in British history at the moment that I just feel like if the king doesn't do a little bit more to appeal to his base, I worry that it's gonna really diminish the role of the monarchy in British society. And we seem to be on this trajectory at the moment of wanting to tear down everything that's historic and good and think about Britain. And I worry that if he doesn't get it right, that there will be a lot of negativity as a result of that. But at the moment, my attitude to it is that I think he's getting bad advice. It's not that I think that the king is inherently, some kind of bad guy or anything like that. But I just worry about. I do worry about it. I just think someone needs to get hold of him maybe and just say, could you just do something like overtly patriotic and British?
Yeah, I just think King Charles is a bit of a buffoon, and it kind of breaks my heart because right now I think we need someone that's sort of resembles more of a warrior. I am your king. Like he just doesn't strike me as that kind of guy at all. But he is what he is. He's doing what he's doing, and let's hope that William does the magic when it's his turn. And sooner rather than later. But you mentioned that he promotes Islam a lot, the king, more so than Christianity, for example. Politics. I know that you never want to shift into politics at the moment. I think maybe down the line you might change your mind. But
I don't know about that, man. I'm not sure I've got the temperament for it.
You'd be very, very good. And I think you're always going to have the British public behind you. I think you'd have to really put your foot in it somewhere for the British public to ever lose support on you.
Yeah, well, never say never, mate.
Well, wherever I go, you're mentioned. And when I mentioned that you were coming on the show, the excitement from people that I
I
told.
hope I haven't let people down. I hope they've not been like, oh, I've had a close look at this guy now and I hate him.
No, they won't. Well, you've been very fair, and I've sort of a couple of times I've tried to lead you astray a little bit. I've slipped some F's in there, and I know that you're mainstream, and Ofcom will be looking at you thinking, blimey, I tried to get you to endorse Bonnie Blue, and you wouldn't have a bar of it.
Well, exactly. Yeah, no, that was it. But one thing I'm amazed, this could be famous last words this now. I'm amazed I've never sworn on air because actually I do swear a lot, and I thought maybe the odd time it'd slip out, but it's touch wood. It's
Never slip, because I'm quite loose with my tongue.
Yeah.
But I can curb it around children.
Yeah, well, I can't.
So-
if it's only when I'm doing stuff like this
Really?
or on air. I get told off. My mates who've got kids, they're like, "You just taught my kid a swear word." It's like, all right.
Yeah, that's the only time I can curb it. I mean, obviously, I'm relatively self-aware, so I hope that none of my friends are saying, "No, there was that time when you said that in front of my son."
Yeah.
But hopefully, I don't do that. Has Islam got a place in British politics, in your humble opinion?
In British politics, I don't think we should ever have a specifically religious party in British politics. I just don't think we should do that. A story that just flew under the radar, actually, was that shortly after the October the 7th massacre by Hamas, there was an attempt to register a party here in Britain. I think it was called the Islam Party or Party of Islam. So it was that was basically it, and it was rejected by the Electoral Commission. But there have been numerous attempts to do it. I think that what we might see is that what we're getting at the moment is with this new party with Jeremy Corbyn, whatever it's going to be called, your party or whatever. That seems to be the main issue for them appears to be Gaza, right? Which I think will attract, a lot of kind of like, the kind of like 60-year-old lovey lefties that said they supported Palestine Action at the weekend and got lifted by police. But also, obviously, huge numbers of the Muslim community that are here in Britain. And what my concern with that is that Jeremy Corbyn's not getting any younger, and that at some point he's going to retire, probably, from politics or political life. And then there'll be a party there that has been allowed to exist by the Electoral Commission because it is not a religious-based party. It's an all-political party with a manifesto that has basically captured like the majority of the Muslim population in Britain, and that once Jeremy Corbyn goes, that party could then become a party that is, if not like overtly the Party of Islam, but one that is really dominated by Muslims in Britain and by what some of their attitudes might be towards various different things. I mean, I'm not going to say Sharia law, obviously, even though we are the Western capital for Sharia courts, by the way. We have more Sharia courts in Britain than any other Western nation, which is nuts. But just as more of a, more of a conservative, fundamentalist Islamic approach in politics. I can see a situation happening really quite easily where once Jeremy Corbyn shuffles off, that party could very easily become that. And so I actually think that's quite logical that would happen. So I would have a concern about that. And I've got a concern about it on a few different grounds. Firstly, I think that it would have a huge shift in Britain's foreign policy. That's going to be a big problem. I mean, Israel are our natural allies in that region of the world. And I would be very concerned that we might start having a foreign policy shift based around that. So that will be a concern. The other aspects of it are just cultural, aren't they? Attitudes towards women. Attitudes towards younger members of society. I do have concerns about. I do have concerns about that. I think the same concerns that we've already spoken about, really, and that I think many people have. And I think it's. I think we're heading towards a very risky situation politically. Once you let any religious group, but in this context, Islam really become its own specific political force in Britain. I think that's a recipe for there to be quite a big problem with society, I think.
I'm going to box this interview off now and stay with me while I land this. I thoroughly enjoyed this, by the way. There's so much more I want to ask you and talk to you about, but I feel like my audience deserve a part two. I think you deserve a part two.
Okay.
And I certainly deserve a part two because I've had a lovely time. And I think any different kind of conversations we have now will just lead completely to something new, and it'll give us something to look forward to. Maybe in 6 months' time we can, review what's happened since, Where do we go? Maybe the start of next year. So I'm going to cap this off now, and I'm pretty sure people know where to find you. GB News, X account, Instagram. We'll get all your social media links in the description. Because in case you don't follow Patrick on Instagram, for example, I mean, he adds value every single platform he is, and I will put all his links in the description. Is there any other sites that I don't know about that you'd want to guide my audience to?
Although actually...
Substack?
No, I'm not on Substack. Although what is quite funny is we were doing a social media sweep or an internet sweep for some security reason recently, and it turns out that someone's put pictures of my feet on a porn website. So that's quite funny. I didn't realise that's happened. I'm big in the foot fetish community, apparently. So there you go. I wouldn't advise people to go and search for that, but, that was, someone's been putting pictures of my feet online.
Nail polish on your toes or not?
No, the unvarnished shit. And also, what's quite...
The unvarnished toe?
But also what's quite annoying is because they've basically dug through some old holiday snaps and done this, and you can actually tell the exact point between before I went to rehab and after I went to rehab, because it's like topless videos of me with like a pina colada by a beach with my fucking gut out, right? And then like some of the other ones where I'm looking a bit more trim. So there you go. But my feet have been rated 4 out of 5 stars on WikiFeet. So cheers, lads.
Oh, congratulations. Well, I tip my hat to you.
Cheers,
You're a man of many talents.
Thank you, mate.
And you've got nice... Ladies? Well, sorry, actually...
we don't discriminate, mate.
And gentlemen. And we're not going to discriminate. So this is going to be my final question.
Right, okay.
So Nicola Sturgeon, I always assumed that she was a lesbian. It's recently come out that she's bisexual. So the question is, A, does that surprise you? And B, do you now think you stand a chance?
Oh, God. I like it. I've got some really, really quite conflicting views about this, because, like, she pushed through one of the most hardcore, radical, woke, pro-trans/LGBT agendas that the Western world has ever seen, certainly that Britain's ever seen. And we are now being told, essentially, I think, that not that she was necessarily living a lie publicly, but she wasn't being entirely honest about where she was on that spectrum. And, like, why not? Because I don't think it would have mattered to people. She's already pushing all this stuff. If anything, it would have made more sense. If anything, it would have made a lot more sense. If she'd have come out and gone, you know what, gosh, as a little girl growing up in Scotland, I didn't feel as though I could have discussed my sexuality publicly. I didn't maybe realise it about myself because I was living in an environment where we couldn't recognise this, and I found that awful. And actually it gave me depression, and it was shocking, and I feel as though I've been trapped in this, in this thing for ages. I think people might have gone, all right, still don't agree with you wanting to put blokes in women's prisons, but all right, I kind of see where you're coming from a bit maybe here. She didn't do any of that stuff. She left politics. I think I'm right in saying got divorced quite quickly, I think. What's happened? Anyway, check that. Has now come out as non-binary, so essentially bisexual, and got a new tattoo, and is talking about how she never had an adolescence and she's going to move down to London.
What's her tattoo? An anchor on her forearm.
Some kind of arrow, like I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, and now wants to move to London, so watch out Soho, right? And like I don't know. I just find all of this a little bit odd because it's not like it's a shock to people, but it's interesting just hearing it. And I just thought there was something very, very odd about that. Like, why not be more trying to really force an agenda on Scotland there, and really be quite demonising of people that don't agree with things like having male rapists in women's prisons. And then the whole time it turns out that maybe there was something more personal at play there.
And that tells me that it's a clear-cut case of you can't trust that person, period. Certainly not in politics.
I'm very lucky. I've never had to wrestle with my sexuality. I've just been straight.
Well, even today?
Either way, even today, especially today, actually.
Oh.
But whatever it is. So I don't know what it's like. Maybe to start having thoughts when you get to a certain age and you're questioning it and all that. Fine. However, if she's been in the most public job you can possibly have, leading a country or been in amongst it for decades, and not being honest about something that's really fundamental about who you are as a person, I think that's a little bit nuts. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to get into a situation where I'm saying she should have outed herself earlier, because it's a very sensitive topic. But I do find it speaks to the psychology or maybe the mindset of a particular individual, if they are capable and willing of hiding something that is that fundamental to their existence. Who you look at in the street is fundamental to who you are. Like your sexuality is fundamental to who you are. If you're able to mask that from the public or not say that to the public for a very, very long time, I think that says a lot about maybe who you are as a person.
Yeah, I agree. And on that note, this is the cliffhanger. And if I could put the EastEnders in, I would do that. Please do go and follow and support Patrick's work. I am a personal fan of his. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Like and subscribe to the channel, because the bigger the audience, the bigger the guests, the better the conversations. And if you'd like to see a part 2 with Patrick, do put that in the comments. I would like a part 2, and I'd like a part 3. I'd like to have the exclusive on your life story. And
no, I don't know if anyone wants that, mate.
You'll be surprised. I don't think you realise just how popular you are. So I've planted those seeds with the audience and with you. Anything you want to ask me?
Oh God! Well, was it, well, I'd just like to thank you actually for having me on. I would like to thank your viewers and listeners.
Did you enjoy it?
I hope I haven't bored the arse off people. It's nice to be on the other side of it, right? It's nice to have people, like people talk, asking me questions. I suppose. Really, I've just thoroughly enjoyed it, mate. Yeah, thank you. I suppose the question will be, when will you have me back?
Whenever you want. Yeah, and I look forward to it. But until then, I'll be cheering your corner.
Cheers,
look
mate.
forward to the next time. Let's go and have some lunch and good health.
Legend. Take care, mate.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, mate.
Cheers,
all right,
brother.
All right.